Hi everyone, Evelyn Puerto here, and I thought I'd give you a quick writing update today on this lovely sunny afternoon. I have been working hard at The Girl Who Broke the Dark, and I've been working on naming some of the supporting characters and figuring out just what makes them tick so that they have a great contribution to the story. I'm also working on nailing the end just so that it's a satisfying conclusion to this story, and of course to make you all want to read on. And I'm filling in some setting details, which has led to a lot of research about caves. Yes, a lot of the action in this one takes place in the caves, which makes sense because it's the girl who broke the dark. Well, that's where I am writing. In other news, I was a guest on the Unstoppable Authors podcast, and if you want to catch the episode, the link will be in the description. And as a special bonus today, I thought I would read the first chapter of the award-winning Flight of the Spark, the first book in the Outlawed Myths series. So here we go. Chapter 1. Iskra wasn't sure about many things, except one. This would be a day she'd remember her whole life. She stared at her mug of tea, lost in anticipation. Today, for the first time in her 15 years, she was going to leave the village of Gishin. People didn't often travel from village to village. It was considered an unnecessary risk, which made no sense to Iskra. The idea of seeing a new place and new people seized her imagination and sent tingles down her spine. She was confident that the thrill of something new would be worth the discomfort of a few hours on a wagon. At first, her mother had been adamant. Iskra was not going anywhere. Undaunted, Iskra put her mind to convincing her mother. Every time her mother complained about the quality of candles, Iskra reminded her that better ones were to be had in Shinru, along with soft woolen stockings and shawls. And she'd heard a rumor that the shoemaker in Shinru was already selling summer shoes, and Luzon needed a new pair. By some miracle, and perhaps by Iskra's zealous attention to her chores and tireless arguing, her mother relented. In fact, she had no idea why her mother had granted her permission. Maybe she'd decided to indulge her daughter just as she'd indulged in a little too much wine that night at the inn. Whatever the reason, Iskra didn't care. Her heart raced at the thought of just seeing something, anything, beyond drab Gishin and its surrounding fields. For once, she'd tasted the illusion of being free from the rules that constrained her every move. She lost herself in a daydream of what was out there, what wonders she might see in Shinru, a town of 2 or 3 times the size of Gishin. Then she heard whispers, the words arriving as if on a cold breeze, breaking into her happy reverie. Old Cassie was taken last night. Iskra jerked her head around, seeking to find the speaker. She scanned the faces of the women sitting to her left on the worn wooden benches, all huddled over the meager breakfast of runny porridge and pine needle tea the village provided. The women all looked the same, garbed in shapeless, faded, and mouse-colored dresses and aprons over woolen leggings, all with hair cropped under their ears and across their foreheads. The only variations were the colored bands that circled their left sleeves at the shoulder to announce their professions. "That's right," said a thin woman hunched over her tea. "She's gone." Iskra noticed the woman's shaking hands and pale, fearful eyes. She wondered if Cassie was someone the woman had been close to. The words repeated themselves in Iskra's mind, cramping her stomach. She stared at her half-eaten porridge, no longer hungry. Old Cassie was taken last night. A hand grabbed her shoulder and brought her back to reality. "Are you coming? We'll be late." "Yes, Tavda," Iskra replied. She shook herself as if to free her mind from the fear that had gripped it, and followed her friend through the crowded hall to the inn where most villagers ate their meals, since cooking was considered to be unsafe. The hall didn't seem as noisy and energetic as it had just a few moments ago. She shivered as she stepped onto the dirt street, a chilly breeze puffing in her face, making her blink. She drew her threadbare, slate-colored shawl closer. Iskra hurried to catch up with Tavda, passing rickety wooden stalls displaying withered apples and potatoes with sprouting eyes, pottery and candles, shoes and shawls, past people wearing their drab gray clothing. She caught up to her friend just as Tavda burst out from between the rows of stalls into what the village of Gishin called a main square. The town's monument to safety stood in its center, a statue of a man holding a sword in one hand, his other arm held out to protect an old woman and a little boy. Iskra thought the woman and the boy looked as though they didn't think the man could protect them from a cockroach. She frowned at the monument, noting it was shabby and worn down, much like the village. 6 or 7 wagons were lined up to one side of the monument, some empty, some piled with the coarse earthenware made in the village, along with stacks of newly cut wood. Brown-clad traders piled goods on wagons or checked harnesses. Tavda and Iskra sprinted to the 3rd wagon, where Tavda's mother, Revda, was negotiating with a trainer. "These girls are only 15, Revda said, pointing to the white bands on the girls' shoulders that marked them as students. "You'll look after them?" Revda looked hard into the man's eyes. He smiled, his grizzled eyebrows almost completely hiding his eyes, like they were my own granddaughters. Revda didn't smile back. "Make sure my other daughter meets them." She handed the man a few coins. "She'll pay you the next time when you get there." She hugged Tavda. "I'm still not so sure about this." Iskra felt her knees grow weak. If Revda didn't allow Tavda to go, her own mother was sure to forbid the trip. She'd looked forward to this excursion for weeks and winced at the thought of it being denied at this last moment. Tavda pulled on her mother's sleeve. "Ma'am, you promised I could visit. We'll be fine. See all the guardsmen?" She pointed to the opposite side of the square, where 10 guardsmen wearing their dark brown leather uniforms sat on their horses. 10 men to protect us. We'll have no problems on the road." Tavda's mother pursed her lips and shook her head. Iskra hadn't thought about the bandits known to prowl the road between Gishin and Shinru. It just now occurred to her to wonder if going to Shinru was such a good idea. Her mouth felt like she'd eaten dust for breakfast. Her enthusiasm for travel started to evaporate like dew on a hot summer morning. "Humph." Tavda's mother scowled at the guardsmen as if she doubted their ability to protect anyone. "Besides," Tavda said, "you know the candles in Shinru are safer than the ones here. Just like the darning needles. And you did want me to try to find a new teapot." Guardsmen's cheers interrupted her answer. Kaberko, the E4 of Gishin, strode through the market, his long black cloak swirling around him, his leathers creaking, the gold chain of his office draped over his shoulders glinting in the sun. Kaberko walked down the line of the caravan, placing his men at the front and rear of the line of wagons. He stopped when he saw Iskra. "Peace and safety, Iskra." "Peace and safety to you." She smiled at the huge man who'd been like an uncle to her after her father died. Kaberko looked from her to Tavda. "Tavda is staying in Shinru for a week, but you are coming back today." "That's right," Iskra said. Tavda's staying with her sister. She asked me to ride with her, since I've never seen Shinru before. I'll be back on the afternoon caravan." "Are you sure this is safe?" Revda pushed forward to get closer to Kaberko. "Of course. My guardsmen will make sure they arrive safely. You have nothing to worry about." Iskra felt the knot in her stomach relax. She was silly to be concerned. Kaberko was right. He always was. She smiled at him, grateful for his reassurance, her excitement about leaving the village stirring back to life. Kaberko smiled at Revda and the girls. "Peace and safety." He turned and continued his progress along the line of wagons. A loud horn cut through the crisp air. "Here, it's time we got ready," their trader said. He boosted the girls onto the wagon's wooden seat. He settled into place beside Tavda. "Don't worry," he said, looking down at Revda. "They'll be safe." A few more minutes of jostling horses and shouted goodbyes. Another blast of the horn, and the caravan set off. Well, there you have it. That's chapter 1. Thanks for stopping by to hear what I've been up to, and come back next week for another update and chapter 2.